Welcome to the Perimenopause Hub. This month, our monthly topic is anxiety, which is fortunate, I guess, given the current state of affairs. Today I'm speaking with Claire Doherty. Claire, do you want to just tell us what you do and who you are?
Hi everyone, thank you for introducing me, Emily. I am a medical intuitive and a registered nutritional therapist. So I specialise in helping people, women really, to reconnect with their bodies and try and understand the underlying meaning of symptoms that they are experiencing.
Excellent. So, looking at anxiety, how would you work with a patient who was displaying anxiety?
So it's quite an interesting one, really, because anxiety normally stems from a place of fear and a feeling of the lack of control. So it's normally when we feel that we are unstable or things around us are unstable and we don't feel safe. And so as human beings, one of our natural kind of needs is to have stability and to have some control. So we like to know what's going on, and we like to have some sort of structure, no matter how fluid that is, and how flexible we are. We all like to have some structure, because it's that gives us a base to be able to kind of build upon. And so when something threatens that, we feel like we don't have any control and we don't have any power, and we can become fearful, so we become scared, and that can create these feelings of anxiety. So anxiety is a normal response, and it is something that we need to accept, really, because there's a lot of posts at the moment going around advising people really to try and distract themselves and to do things that take their mind off the fact that they might be anxious, which can be really helpful because we don't want to be in this state of heightened anxiety for a long time. But on the other hand, if we completely deny that we're actually a little bit fearful and we're a bit anxious, and we put on this kind of fake smile and we can't try and distract ourselves completely, that can just be just as damaging. So we need to really kind of accept that all of our emotions are valid, and one emotion isn't bad and one isn't good. So being anxious isn't bad. It doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us inadequate or anything like that. It is just an emotion. And in fact, I would challenge anyone at the moment who said that they weren't a little bit uncertain or a little bit scared about what was going to happen, because I think it's normal in times, these are unprecedented times. We've never had anything going on like this before, but I think it's normal to feel anxious sometimes. What we don't want is when people feel anxious and they don't know why they're feeling anxious, or when that anxiety gets a little bit out of control and it starts to dominate their whole day, so that you're waking up feeling anxious and you're feeling anxious through the day, and maybe you're not sleeping or feeling rested because of that heightened state of anxiety. And there's lots of things from a kind of a metaphysical viewpoint, as I've just said, that's normally connected to a lack of control. We don't know what's going on with our bodies during the menopause and the perimenopause, and new symptoms might be appearing, and because we don't always understand what they're about, they can feed into our worries and also increase this anxiety. And then from a physiological point of view, our anxiety is affected by our changing hormones, which impact our stress hormones and link in like that. So together, if we've got our overthinking heads on and we've got these hormonal fluctuations, together they can create this kind of storm around the body, which really serves to increase those feelings of anxiety.
And add in coronavirus and a world in lockdown, and it doesn't help, does it?
Exactly. No, it doesn't. And so really, when I'm working with someone, I want to try and understand if they have got anxieties about anything specific. So, are they worried about their future? Are they worried about their body or their health? Do they know why they're feeling anxious? Because it's actually really, really common for people to be in a constant state of anxiety, sort of low-grade anxiety, and they don't have anything specific that they're worried about. They just know that they feel quite uptight for a lot of the time. And so trying to sort of get to the bottom of that is really interesting, and it can be really enlightening, because when that happens, people can then start to kind of realize why they are feeling the way they do, but also they can reduce it quite easily, because sometimes there's triggers to that people aren't aware of, and once we kind of delve in and look at those, then we can start to look at ways to help to reduce anxiety. And normally I take a bit of a kind of a holistic approach, so I might advise somebody about their diet. So it might be just something really easy, like trying to not eat refined carbohydrate foods late at night, which can impact their sleep pattern, and that increases their anxiety the next day if they haven't slept well. It might be to reduce caffeine, because some foods like caffeine have got a stimulatory effect on stress hormones. And if we're drinking a lot of coffee, having a lot of caffeine, that's going to make their stress hormones worse. And it might be advising a supplement, or it might be a lifestyle change, like trying to get a sleep routine in place, or trying to reduce the trigger that is causing their anxiety. A lot of the time, I will work with somebody to try and get them to include some form of mindfulness in their day, because a lot of people become anxious when they take too much on and they're overburdened, and then they feel that they can't complete it all. And again, it links into this feeling of a lack of control, too many plates spinning, too much to do. And that's quite common, I think, for us as women. As we reach this time in our lives, we've got, children, families, jobs, homes to run, you name it. And we've got all these plates spinning in the air. And plus we're going through all these changes with our body, and it's so much uncertainty. So trying to introduce something into the day every day that we do repeatedly can start to bring in a little bit of structure again, and a little bit of control that can help to reduce the anxiety a little bit.
So for those women who maybe have never experienced anxiety until perimenopause comes along, would your advice still be to try and carve out that bit of time to do some mindfulness and try and get to the bottom of what it is? I mean, keep a diary, keep a note of what sets it off. Would that be sensible?
Yeah, you can do. And for some people, it's quite easy, because once they start keeping a diary, then we talk about it, there can be a pattern. So it can be, actually for some people it was 3 hours after they'd had their third cup of coffee that they noticed they felt even more anxious. And then that might make us start thinking, well, maybe we're a bit more sensitive to caffeine now. What happens if we take that out for 5 days and see what happens? Some people, it could be a person that sort of triggers them, and so then we look at their behavioral responses and see what can we do to try and reduce that sensitivity to that trigger, to help to reduce the anxiety. So keeping a diary is a really good way of trying to keep a handle on it, and trying to kind of score your anxiety from 1 to 10. So 0 to no anxiety, and 10's you can't leave the house type thing. And just presumably
for some people it comes as at a stage in their cycle as well, doesn't it? So For some, it
Absolutely.
sort of manifests at the PMS type of the time of the cycle, doesn't it? That
Yeah,
can manifest
absolutely.
as
It can do,
anxiety.
yeah. So that week leading up before your period, some people, you know, everyone's different. So some people get really low energy and want to go and lock themselves away, and just feel a little bit flat and you know, calm. Some people kind of go into overdrive then a little bit. They become sensitive, but in a different way, and can become very affected by what's going on around them, and that can make them anxious. So yeah, definitely there can be a pattern with that, absolutely. And there also sometimes isn't a pattern, which is also common, because don't forget, when we're in this transitional period, your, you know, your hormones aren't the same every month, which makes it quite difficult to track. But that doesn't mean that it's not connected to your hormones. It just means that it's not always as easy or as obvious for us to track it. But I'd always kind of go in there with looking at the diet in a way that tries to balance the hormones out a little bit. And quite often it's not massive changes that we need to make. Quite often it's quite simple changes combined with a lifestyle factor and combined with something like mindfulness or journaling or meditation. And it's surprising if we do start to notice a pattern, how that actually can reduce our anxiety, because once we can notice a pattern, it's almost as though we're seeing that actually we're not making it up, and it's following this pattern. There might be a reason for it, and that gives us a little bit of kind of comfort and a little bit of control back, because then with this pattern we can think of ways to try and reduce it. So it's definitely something that you can get lots of help with. You know, so many practitioners out there that can help with anxiety. So it's, I would say, out of all the symptoms, it's one of the ones that actually it's there's a lot of people that can help with it. Yeah.
Yes, and I think I absolutely agree. There is a lot of help out there, and there are a lot of apps that you can download onto your phone and all sorts of things that you can just start small and see what works for you. Also, conversely, it seems to be one of the symptoms, generally the psychological symptoms are ones that can sometimes get overlooked by the mainstream medical world, which makes it harder for women who are suddenly catapulted into this huge anxiety, but because they aren't having hot flushes, they're maybe not being taken seriously on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I see a lot of women that have been offered antidepressants because of anxiety and told to just take them for that week of their cycle. And some women do, and it helps them. And you know, no judgment here. If that's what helps you, then that's great. But it often is presented in a way that doesn't really link the hormones with the anxiety. So it's kind of a bit like, oh yeah, you're getting anxious at that time in your period. Well, you're probably just anxious about your period, so take these. You know, it seems very disjointed. It can be quite a disjointed way to look at it. Whereas if we looked at the root cause and thought about, you know, the changes that are going on, well, okay, we can't reverse these changes and we can't stop them, but we can support them. And for some people, supporting them with you know, medication is maybe what they need and maybe what works, but it doesn't have to be that way for everyone, because there's different things for different people.
And as you rightly say, for some people, simply acknowledging that it's happening, that there is a pattern to it, that it is somehow controllable because you've understood what it is, sometimes that can just be a huge release, can't it?
Absolutely huge. Yeah, for some people that can be the turning point. For some people it really can. And once you make a couple of small changes, and you can feel that your anxiety maybe isn't at that level, it's coming down a bit, or you get a couple of days where you don't notice that you're as anxious, that also, I think, helps us to realize that, oh, maybe we've got more control over this than we think. Because all of the symptoms that we are experiencing at this time, we do feel a bit like our body has gone haywire, that it's gone completely out of control, and it feels like, what can I do? It's just, quite frightening sometimes. So to be able to reverse that and think, well, actually, by doing these little things, it's made me feel a bit better, is quite comforting. Yeah.
And just quickly, if anybody's watching this and they think, oh my God, I really need to get to the bottom of this, obviously anybody can work with you. You can work with people anywhere in the world, can't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do most of my work online, using Zoom like we are now, or Skype, or FaceTime, or WebEx. So, or even the telephone, actually. So, and I am insured, internationally, so I can work with anyone.
I was just thinking, at a time of quite major uncertainty across the world, it may be that some people want to reach out to you and actually try and get a handle on this. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly cover that off.
Yeah, that's fine. And I do offer 30-minute discovery or breakthrough sessions as well. So if somebody wants to just connect with me and ask questions and isn't sure whether they would like to work with me or not, then I do offer that, and it's obligation free as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claire.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.